for Christ forevermore. This is the Christ and the Antichrist, chapter 31, part 2, titled The Beast in Revelation 13 is the Bishop of Rome. The Bishop of Rome refers to your Pope. He's not our Pope. You know, Pope means father or papas. He's not our father. Satan is not our father. So we're going to go straight to it. We're starting from, and it's the Christ and the Antichrist chapter 31, we're starting from verse 93. Again, the Apostle John wrote, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, and having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." Revelation 13:1. Question: what is the meaning of those 10 horns and 7 heads upon the head of Babylon, aka the Pope? Before we reveal the answer to the above question, it's best we look at verse 2 of Revelation 13 first. In verse 2 of Revelation 13, the Apostle John said, "And the beast, brackets, Bishop of Rome, which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion." So the Apostle John said above that Rome, aka the so-called Pope, resembled all these animals: lion, bear, and leopard. In the book of the prophet Daniel from chapter 7 verse 1, it says, "In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven stood upon the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second, like a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue, that means remnant, with the feet of it, and was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Daniel chapter 7, verse 1 to 8. The earlier question was, what is the meaning of those 10 horns and 7 heads upon the head of Rome, aka the so-called Pope? Remember also that the Bible said in verse 2 of Revelation 13 that Rome, aka the Pope, resembled all those animals and beasts: lion, bear, leopard. It resembled all those animals and beasts we just saw above in the prophet Daniel's dream. In other words, Rome, aka the Pope, is the embodiment of all those animals: lion, bear, and the leopard. We also saw how the 4th beast in prophet Daniel's dream had the same 10 horns as the Pope. Now let us see what the prophet Daniel had to say with regards to his dream and vision. From verse 15, the Bible says, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them, brackets, the angels that stood by, and I asked him the truth of all this. So he told me, and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, brackets, kingdoms, which shall arise out of the earth. Again, these great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Amen. Glory for Christ forevermore. I read it for you again. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast. Brackets. Rome, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding great dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom tree fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Daniel 7:15-20. So the prophet Daniel was told that the 4 beasts represented the 4 kingdoms that would dominate and rule the world before the saints take over from them. Before we talk about those 10 horns, let us see another vision that was given to Daniel and the king Nebuchadnezzar by Papa God with regards to these 4 beasts, brackets, animals, dash, kingdoms. The Bible recorded for us that in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled and his sleep brake from him. Then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans to show the king his dream. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If you will not make known unto me the dream, with the interpretation thereof, you shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that you would gain time, because you see the thing is gone from me. But if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, you shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that you would gain the time, because you see the thing is gone from me. But if you will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you. For you have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can show me the interpretation thereof. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, there is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. Therefore there is no king, lord, nor ruler that asked such things at any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And it's a rare thing that the king required, and there is none other that can show it before the king, except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. And the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. Daniel chapter 2, verse 1-14. Here's the background to this great story. The prophet Daniel was one of the Jews who were exiled in Babylon for breaking the law of Moses in the Old Testament. Daniel chapter 1, verse 1 informs us that in the first year of the reign of Joachim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Joachim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house, and the king spoke unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name Belshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. Daniel chapter 1 verse 1 to 9. So Daniel was one of the exiles imprisoned in Babylon with Israel and Judah during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. The Bible recorded for us in verse 17 of Daniel chapter 1 that Daniel and his 3 brothers were amongst those chosen to be trained and brought into the king's palace. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Getting back to the issue at hand, which is that King Nebuchadnezzar had dreams and visions which troubled his mind, and which he sought answers from his wise men, of whom Daniel and his brothers were amongst. We were at the point where the king had just issued a decree against all the wise men of Babylon for failing to tell him his dream and its interpretation thereof. From verse 14, and the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is the decree so hasty from the king? He answered and said to Arioch, I beg your pardon. Then Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would give him time, and that he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his fellows should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who has given me wisdom and might, and has made known unto me now what we desired of thee. For thou hast now made known unto us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had ordained to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus unto him, destroy not the wise men of Babylon. Bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the captives of Judah that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king had demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in latter days. Daniel chapter 2 verse 13 to 28. So Papa, God gave the prophet Daniel King Nebuchadnezzar's dream and its interpretation thereof. And now the prophet is in the presence of the king in order to reveal this mystery to him. Remember, the reason why we're giving to you this revelation is because we wanted to show you another place in the Bible where it talked about those 4 kingdoms, kings, beasts, who were predestined by Papa God to rise up from the sea and rule the world before we take over from them. Daniel is now in the presence of the king, and he says to him, "Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy head are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter, and he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for the sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out with our hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the shaft of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven had given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the heaven, had he given into thy hand, and had made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall arise another kingdom, brackets, animal, inferior to thee, and another third, brackets, animal, another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all this, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of this king shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but they shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain with our hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God had made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth it is, that your God is a God of gods, and a Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldest reveal the secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. Adrian Room wrote in the Dictionary of Proper Names, Nebuchadnezzar, the well-known name of the king of Babylon, who conquered and destroyed Jerusalem. He represents Akkadian Nabu-Kudrisi Usa. May Nabu protect the boundary stone. Boundary stone here refers to his line of succession. Nabu was an important Babylonian and Assyrian god, bracket devil. The king's name sometimes rendered more accurately in English as Nebuchadnezzar. Nebo Mount, the mountain in Jordan, northwest of the Dead Sea, is mentioned in the Bible as the one from which Moses viewed Israel's promised land. Deuteronomy chapter 34 verse 1. The name is that of the Assyrian god, brackets, devil, Nabu, the god of learning and writing, also mentioned in the Bible, Isaiah 46:1, whose own name means speaker, announcer, from Navi, prophet. The name of this god, brackets, devil, also lies behind that of Nebuchadnezzar. So the name of Nebuchadnezzar represents the Akkadian Nabu Kudsri Usar, which means may Nabu, brackets, prophet, protect the boundary stone. The boundary stone refers to his line of succession. This line of succession ends with the prophet Nabu or Nebo, Muhammad. Muhammad is Nabu, brackets, Nebo, or the false prophet who came and established the black stone. The black stone at Mecca is the stone which the false prophet Muhammad came and established for the nations to kiss, brackets, Islam. Remember previously, we saw how Papa God through his prophet Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar, the sovereign of Babylon, that he was the head of all the kingdoms of the world and mankind, brackets, the first Adam. Nebuchadnezzar was only a type and a shadow of that man who was to come and have dominion over mankind. Muhammad came through that line of succession of kings, and he is that man who was supposed to come and bear rule over the mankind. Again, it is written that the prophet Daniel said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, as we have previously seen, that the third kingdom, Grecian leopard king, in Daniel 7:6, Daniel 8:21, will bear rule over all the earths. But earlier, the prophet Daniel also told King Nebuchadnezzar that the sovereigns of Babylon were the rulers of mankind and all the earths. Now, if Alexander the Great, along with the Grecian Empire, came and ruled in the place of Nebuchadnezzar, this lets us know that that man who was supposed to have dominion over mankind had not yet come. This means that the king Nebuchadnezzar was not that man but his shadow. If the promise referred to Nebuchadnezzar, the obvious question will be, where was he when the Persians, brackets, second beast, Alexander the Great, third beast, and the Romans, fourth beast, were ruling? The man of sin, death, aka Muhammad, was that prince that was to come and bear rule for Babylon. In other words, Muhammad is the head of Babylon, brackets, the old man. He is also the head of all the kingdoms of the world. Now, it's very important that the beloved reader understands the mind of Papa God with regards to the vision that was given to Nebuchadnezzar and the prophet Daniel. That dream was about one man who had dominion over mankind. Even before Muhammad went to the lake of fire, brackets, second death, he confessed to one of his servants that all the kingdoms of the world were given into his hands. We have the testimony of this from the book by the Muslim scholar Muhammad Haikal, titled The Life of Muhammad. He wrote for us, at the beginning of his illness, Muhammad suffered from sleeplessness, and as the nights and days were long, Muhammad felt like going out of his house for a walk around the city. Only his servant Abu Muhahiba accompanied him on this promenade. He went to Baqi al-Gahad, where all the cemeteries of the Muslims lay on the outskirts of Medina. After praying for the dead buried in that cemetery, when it was time to return home, the Prophet approached Abu Munahib and said to him, "O Abu Muhabbin, I have been given the keys of this world and eternity in it, and now I am being offered paradise and meeting with my God. I am asked to choose between them. The above from the mouth of the Antichrist said it all. Muhammad was given the ability over the kingdoms of the whole world and mankind, and he is that man that was supposed to come and bear rule in King Nebuchadnezzar's dream and vision. We have answered this question in the coming chapters. What is the meaning of the 10 horns and the 7 heads on the beast of Revelation 13? The Bishop of Rome. Amen. Glory for Christ forevermore. This is the Christ and the Antichrist, chapter 31, titled The Bishop of Rome. The beast in Revelation 13 is the Bishop of Rome. The beast in Revelation 13 is the Bishop of Rome. The beast in Revelation 13 is the Bishop of Rome, the so-called Pope. And this is part 2. Glory for Christ forevermore. Amen.